Over the last few weeks, and particularly in the lead up to the end of 2024 and in the early days of 2025, one of the most consistent questions that I've been asked is, how do I write effective copy? And the reason why I think people are asking this question is because they're starting to prepare lots of their content for the new year and the coming year ahead, but they're also working on different projects and different improvements to their website and the way that they show up and speak about their work online. So in this episode of the Heart Center Business Podcast, I'm going to answer that question. How do you write effective copy? This is episode number 448, which means you can find all the relevant links and the show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/448. Let's dive in. Hello, I'm Tash Corbin, a business strategist and mentor based on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. The mission of this podcast is to help heart-centered entrepreneurs to make more money, and in doing so, change the world for the better. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi and Jinnaburra people. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I want to say from the outset that I absolutely love writing and speaking and words in general. My clients love it when I help to write copy for them. I love writing email sequences and registration pages, webinar outlines, sales pages, and all sorts of different content, questions, and copy for my clients. But I want to be very clear. My ability to write really amazing copy for myself and my clients is not a gift. It is not a natural talent. It is a skill that has been developed over time. So I've got 5 strategies for you to get better at writing effective copy, because even if you do hire someone to do copywriting for you and you have someone completely on tap that you can get to write content for you and copy for you as much as you like, you will never escape the need to be able to write for your audience. And great copywriters also ask you a bunch of questions that if you haven't learnt this skill of writing for your audience, you won't be able to answer anyway. So the skill of writing effective copy for your business is actually mission critical for every business owner. Whether it's writing your weekly newsletter or writing some posts to go on your social media, whether it's writing a long form sales page to promote your brand new offer, you need to be able to speak in your brand voice, and you need to be able to write copy that's compelling for your ideal clients. So here are the 5 steps. Number 1, view copywriting as a practice. The more you get attached to having the perfect copy the first time around and needing the perfect copy before you share anything, the longer you'll hold yourself back from actually improving your copywriting. By treating copywriting as a practice, you'll not only let go of that perfectionism and get stuff out into the world more consistently, but you'll also be able to see what works for your audience and what doesn't. You'll be able to get more and more insight as to what tone you want to use when you're talking to your audience online. You'll get more insight about the way you need to explain what you do for it to make sense for your cold audience versus your warm audience versus your hottest leads. You'll also be able to see the gaps that people have in relation to how they perceive the problem that you help them to solve. So when people first come across my business, they often think that their number one challenge in their business is reaching enough people online. But it doesn't take much digging for me to discover that they don't have a reach problem. They actually have a messaging problem, or they have a conversion problem. The reason why their reach is not resulting in further audience growth and sales is because they actually don't know how to convert reach into a connected relationship with their audience. And they don't know how to convert a relationship with their audience into sales. That is far more important for us to address than getting them more reach. So the more I practice and approach my copywriting as a practice, the more I can see what the resistance points are for my audience when I start talking about working on their conversion rates. They'll often say to me, yeah, that's fine, but I don't know how to get anyone to actually have a conversation with. I don't have people to convert because my audience is not big enough. And so rather than me just yelling at them, yes, your audience is big enough, suck it up, I can meet them where they're at. I can see how much I need to bridge between where they are and what it is that they really need to be working on. So view your writing as a practice. Strategy number 2 is to stop outsourcing or avoiding writing copy. So whether you're trying to outsource it to AI or other humans, or whether you're avoiding it altogether by only writing to your email list once a month, or only writing on social media a couple of times a week. Resisting writing copy and avoiding copywriting is slowing down your skill development. So set the intention to send your emails a little more consistently. Set the intention to have a few more posts a week going up on your socials. And set the intention to use this as an amazing practice to develop your copywriting skills. Strategy number 3 is to get clear on your core message. Your core message is devised of 3 core components. Number 1, your niche. Who are you writing this copy for? Who are you trying to reach and convert into clients? Your bridge messaging. What do they assume and what goals do they have front of mind versus what you know they really need to be working on? So bridging between what they think they need and what they think the problem is versus what you really can see is the problem. And we bridge through what I call the light bulb moment. Bridge messaging is something that really helps you to connect with your audience instead of feeling like you're just yelling at them and telling them that they're focused on the wrong thing. It can also be the difference between you sharing your offers and people saying, that's lovely, but it's not a priority for me right now, versus sharing your offers in a way that really resonates. So your bridge messaging is particularly critical in that core message. And then the final component of your core message is your value proposition. What is the gap between before working with you versus after working with you? And what is the value of that gap in the eyes of your audience? Why is it valuable to them? Why do they see it as something that's valuable for them to invest in? Your core message really is critical to getting your copywriting working more effectively. So take time to revise and review your core message consistently. At the end of today's podcast episode, I will mention my core messaging template and training. You'll be able to find the link to that with the show notes of today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/448. But first, let's talk about tip number 4 and 5. Strategy number 4 is finding your own voice. More and more as you write more content and more copy for your audience, you will tap into understanding and connecting with what you really want to say. What is it that you would really say to them if you unleashed? What is it that you really want your audience to understand? And what is it the way that you want it to come across? Do you want your voice online to be one of understanding and compassion? Do you want to be the tough love kind of person for them? Do you want to be direct and straightforward and share strategy and advice? Or do you want to share more of that mindset shift? Do you want to be gentler in the way that you approach this message? Or do you want to cut straight to the point? Think about how you speak to people that you know and love. Unmask from showing up as this rigid, robotic business owner and start showing up as yourself. The more content you create, the more you'll find that own voice. And find the voice of how you want to share it as well. But that takes practice and it also takes intention. You can practice writing copy over and over again. You can write hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. But if you never do it through the lens of what do I really want to say and how do I really want to come across? What is my voice and how do I want to approach this? You'll consistently find yourself parroting those that you follow or falling back into the habit or the trap of sounding like everyone else or sounding corporate and robotic. Strategy number 5, be a student of the human. Don't just talk at your audience. Think about the way that you talk to your friends, right? You don't show up at a friend's house and then just talk at them without ever listening. You listen to what they say and you tailor your message accordingly. You listen to their questions. You listen to their objections. You listen to what's going on for them as well. So you're not just constantly showing up with a loudspeaker yelling at your friends. And yet, if you consistently see your online presence, your copy and your content as one-way communications, you will show up that way online. Don't look at social media as a broadcast medium. Instead, look at it as an opportunity to connect and converse with your friends. Listen just as much as you speak, if not more. So they are our 5 strategies to write more effective copy. See it as a practice, stop outsourcing or avoiding it, get clear on your core message, find your own voice, and be a student of the human. Now, as I said earlier in the episode, when we were talking about your core message, I actually have a free template and training on crafting your core message. And I'll pop the link to that with the show notes of today's episode at tashcorbin.com/448. Now, there are actually 2 components here. There's the core messaging template, which is a document that you can download, but there's also my messaging makeover training. So make sure that you grab both of those over at tashcorbin.com/448. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. And until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. Bye for now.